One of the core dimensions of a healthy integrated community that addresses the human need not only for a sense of survival, security, but for love and belonging is the biological relationships with one another. Now, the biological dimension is deeply integrated with the mental emotional dimension, but one of the ways that it works is by associating biology with the symbols of the people in the situation that is evoking the biology. So let's look at this. So the first thing is, if you are with 10 people and there is an earthquake and you think, oh my God, I'm going to die, and you look around at the faces of those 10 people, you then have a biological link between the smells, the tastes, the appearance, the sounds, and of the environment, but also of those 10 people. And you are going to associate them with what you think and feel at that moment. Now, the association imprint is correlated to the intensity of the emotion at the time of the imprint. Typically, trauma is the highest imprinting emotion because you have all of the emotion that is associated with the thought, which is the most terrifying and thus in some ways transcendent thought for the human ego on the dark side, which is, oh my gosh, I may die. And so this indelibly puts these memories in place. So trauma then becomes something where, you smell the lawnmower smell of new cut grass, which was the smell that was in your nose as you were being beaten to such a point that you dissociated and left your body as a 6-year-old boy by a man who had unregulated emotion filled with rage. It's very difficult then to dissociate. When you're not thinking, you smell new mown grass, there's some part of you that remembers that feeling that was the last thing I smelt. Maybe I'm going to die. And then, the healing of trauma is the dissociating with those things, mostly by going back into those times and releasing the chemical charges of terror, etc., that if undealt with can lead to PTSD. So this is the dark side. The positive side is that when we spend time together in physical presence, may I give you a hug? How is that for you? Let's eat some nourishing food. I just met you. I just greeted you. I felt your body. Now I'm eating. Now I'm more secure. I'm with a safe person. I just met you. I touched your body. I smelled your scent. Now I'm eating. Now I'm drinking. My body is refreshed. You're a safe person. Now, this becomes very, very important when we understand that the biology of the human body is 500% more predisposed to the negative than the positive. Meaning that if you're walking along the meadow and there are 3,800 roses and there are 2,900 bluebells and there are 15 gorgeous trees and there are 3 million cubic inches of beautiful sky and there's 4 birds in the sky. Sounds good so far. We can embellish, add some pear trees, add some, whatever it is that's most pleasing and beautiful to you. Magnificent art. The wriggle of a snake in the lower left-hand corner of your eye is going to eclipse all of that in half a second. And it is going to produce more physiological sensation, cortisol, adrenaline, different fear chemicals. It's going to produce more of that in a half second than that entire pastoral field. Now, this snake may be, less than 1% of 1% of the entire landscape? But it's having 5 times more impact. The reason is simple. You're not going to die whether you notice that there are 3 pairs or 2 pairs on one of the beautiful pear trees. You're not going to die whether there's 2 birds or 3 birds of, soaring majestically in the sky. But you might die if you don't recognize the threat of the snake and jump out of the way. This is intelligent as a biological ratio for these reasons. That ratio kept more people alive than the other ratio, in which, let's not focus on the snake. The sky is so blue until you can't see it because you're dead. So good on a threat survival situation. In a highly traumatizing environment, this really serves core survival. Now, here's where it gets ugly. That brain doesn't just flip off because you're in a romantic relationship. That brain continues to emphasize the negative at a rate of 5 or more to 1. Just take the old scenario in so much of modern culture, the affair, right? So, part of what we've done with the sexual revolution and all that, and the delinking supposedly of sex of feelings, it doesn't actually work that way. But part of the illusionary and experimental journey of let's just have sex with everyone all the time whenever we feel like it, which is kind of the counterbalance of you're an evil sinner for enjoying your body. So pendulums usually go in the extremes. So you're an evil sinner, you puritanical wretch, up to free love. You're not a sinner, and there is no free love. You have to build it and sustain it. Boundless promiscuity descends rapidly into violence, into addiction, into shame, into an explosion of PTSD viruses, including HIV and various spin-offs. So no, it's not free, and no, it has emotional impact, and it has social impact, and it can destroy the life of a child, or it can protect the life of a child. The extremes are usually equally dangerous in any continuum, and so we're coming back as a culture to try and understand what is this healthy relationship. But going back to the ratio, as a 5-to-1 ratio, someone is faithful on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, on Friday, and Saturday. It went on next week. They were faithful. And it even went on the week after that. So we've now got 21 days of faithfulness. Now we're up to 55 days, 60 days. Amazing, 120 days of faithfulness. 120 days. There's some speculation that at least some men think of sex every 7 seconds. a little bit higher in women because of the bio, or a little higher in men because of the biology, the testosterone, etc. And it's, if you're going to be scanning for things, it's one of the more enjoyable things to scan from. Oh my gosh, what would it be like to have an orgasm here or here or here? So, 180 days of a brain saying, wonder what it would be like to have sex with this person, with this person, with this person, with this person. And you, the lucky one who has been chosen as the primary person out of, 7 billion people? Out of all the 7 billion people, someone picked you. Of all the 10,000 people they've interacted with, they picked you, and they still picked you, and they picked you again, and they picked you again. And this 7 seconds they said, nah, I don't want to hurt my partner. No, that's this and that. And then 180 days in, they looked at someone right at the moment that looked at them, and they knew they both wanted to get it on, and they, went behind a building into the, into the, toilet of the plane, whatever it was, and, had their little thing. The little adrenaline rush of, oh, that feels good, because you always release stress, with an orgasm. It's all anxiety, fear, all this stuff, all these things that our advertisers are pounding into us every day. You're a shitty person if you don't buy our product. And so they release it all, and then they go back to their 180 days of, fidelity, Well, we're looking at, 1,000,000 to 1 faithfulness in that area relative to not. All those thoughts just dismissed, but it's like that was very, very exciting, And so you have this correlation, and if we're looking at 1,000,000 to 1, a million thoughts over a 180-degree period rejected, in order to protect, this boundary, you'd have to say that this is a very faithful person, but that's not how we feel, not in the slightest. When we find out about that one thing, whether the person tells us or not, I'm really sorry. I don't know what came over me. I'm feeling remorse, but this is what happened, and I chose to, violate the message that you're the one. I chose to because you're obviously a little bit less of the one if someone else could be the one. I chose to violate that message that, if have we agreed on it, or is it just a social norm, whatever it is, I knew you wouldn't like it, and I did it anyway. What? You're a cheater. See, and this is the interesting and, difficult thing about winning in a romantic relationship, because you are now defined by 1 point in over 1,000,000 points. You got 1,000,000 data points, and you're defined by the one thing that is the deviation from the norm. It's not the norm. The 1,000,000 points is the norm. This is the deviation, the counterpoint of that norm. And yet, the impact it has on the other person is not the kind of impact you would get in a bank account scenario. In a bank account scenario, if someone deposits $1 and $1 and $1 and $1 1,000,000 times and then withdraws $1, you've still got $999,000. Not bad. A net profit, that's very healthy. But in romantic relationships, it's quite the opposite. Of course, you're faithful. Any decent person would be. So dismiss that, dismiss that, dismiss that, dismiss that, dismiss that, dismiss that. And I don't believe it. You, in this one instance, did this, and so it's, I'm not going to be able to trust you again for the rest of my life. Well, you can probably statistically trust them 999,000 times. In other words, you can trust them to break the agreement again. Most people who are unfaithful do so repeatedly. If they do it, most do so repeatedly. Because the software that says, we're in a fight, I'm fed up with them, here's a wonderful opportunity, I would feel great, no one would be hurt. That software, whatever the rationale is that creates the infidelity, is going to likely happen again. Now, all I'm emphasizing is that unlike a bank account, where if you get even 20 cents profit in the dollar, you take 5, angel investors will invest 100,000, 100,000, 100,000, 100,000 in 20 companies. And they are expecting to lose in 18 to 19 of those companies. They're expecting them to go bankrupt and them to lose all their money. But what they're hoping is that one of them will just hit out of the park and be a winner. That's the paradigm of the angel investor. And this is kind of the opposite. You're making one bet, and even if it gives you 990,000 in profit, it's a complete failure if one thing goes wrong. You lose $1. The company loses $1 at any point in its life. That's the end of it. I'm never trusting you again. I'm withdrawing all my money. So this is not to make light of the betrayal, of the grief, of the death, of the fragility of trust. It's hard to build, easy to destroy, is what I'm getting at. Now, it's no wonder that so many relationships fail when we've got something as fragile as trust, that one breach in a million can literally bring into question the entire relationship. Because I guarantee you that the typical business person will take a 1 in 3 thing. In other words, if the typical business person realizes that they're going to make $3 profit for every hour an employee works, and that they would make $4, but the employee is going to waste one of those dollars, watching internet or whatever, but the employer is still going to make $3 in net profit. Unless there's a replacement that's going to make $5, the calculation is rational. We are all better. This person is better off with a job. I'm better off with the $3. I would not be better off with nothing. And we got to work with reality, right? This is practical. The relationship partner that cheats 1 out of 3 times is, devastating. It's a different circuit. This requires community to bridge that gap, which means you've got to see, because reality is not perfect. It is not, and it will not be perfect. You can get relative perfection in certain areas. I can say that I've spent time with, a fair number of sexual partners, and I've never lied to one of them. But that's okay, so great, you won in that area. But it doesn't mean that I haven't hurt, almost all of them in various ways, at different times. So, okay, fine, you got lying sorted out. But it doesn't mean that you want the same thing and there isn't disappointment or, a feeling of trauma when you really needed this at this time and I couldn't give it. So there is no perfect relationship. So if every negative is going to be, attached to the relationship biologically at a rate of 500% louder intensity than every positive, for a relationship to break even, 6 things have to go well for everything that goes wrong, or at least 5. So you can't get rid of the wrong thing is the point. The only thing that you have a chance to do is to flood the relationship with positive things. Now, every time you eat together, every time you grow together, every time you experience a success together, every time you smile together, every time you share a warm, safe hug that ends well, every time you admire each other's art, every time you said, that's a great point you made. That's wonderful. I loved hearing you speak. That's very nice. Every time you do that, you're associating positive chemicals in the body with that face, with that voice, with that smell. And this has got to happen at a rate of 500 to 1, or of 500%, or 5 to 1 minimum. And to do that and to feel a sense of safety and familiarity, because this is another circuit. There is another part of the trauma circuit that says, are you familiar? Do I know you? If you are in the unknown category of I don't really know you, you are treated as a high threat, number 1. Number 2, everything that you do good is spun into a negative. I'm an American man in a country that is raised thinking that the typical man is a pedophile. And so when I go out into American parks and play with children, I get the eye. It takes about 10 seconds for an American to decide that the only reason that me as an unknown person could possibly be interested in the delightful innocence and enjoyment of a child, I mean, who wouldn't be, but is to have sex with this child. I've got this meticulous plan, right? What is it exactly? And they think, I don't know what the plan is. What's his angle? You see? And so everything that I do that is positive in that category stacks up against me. Oh, he's being very friendly. I know what he's up to. He gave my child something. Ooh, he gave something. That's bad. So this is, in other words, you don't get to have your beauty and your strength actually be received as beauty and strength until you move out of the terrain of I don't know you to I know you. And you have to move out of that in a way that I know you to be a much more safe person than not safe person. And that's the only intelligent way to look at it. There are not safe people and unsafe people. There are less safe people and there are more safe people, and it gets down to specific areas. Well, I don't like that. I don't like thinking about that. That's a lot to comprehend with a bunch of strangers. Like, how are you going to know you're safe to ride a bus with? You're safe to talk about my feelings with. You're safe to make a pizza with. You're safe not to poison my son accidentally with your cooking. But you're not, it's overwhelming. You're just not safe. So one of the most important aspects of a community is, one, is it smaller than 150 people? Because our sociologists tell us we can't track more than 150 people. And what I'm actually coming to it, as we're going to wrap all this up, is the point, do you eat together? Do you cook together? Do you do fun activities? Painting together, photography together, walking together, bathing together, cooking, eating, walking, bathing, cleaning. and helping each other, build a house, this and that and the other. Because if you do all of that, you have flooded the psychic terrain around that person. You have flooded the biology of your own body with positive messages that say, yes, this person is safe. And so when they do something anomalous, which they will do because they're not like you, when they do something anomalous, you are going to imagine, what wonderful thing are they doing? And it's going to be in that range because they've learned to care about you. Because when you don't have this biological data, you can have mental data that says people are great and you feel nothing in your body. For that warm smile to erupt spontaneously, biology and biological links have to be built systemically and repetitively and sustainably into what's happening in that community on a daily basis. That's the community that is strong enough for the one mistake, the one trauma, etc., to be seen for what it is. Yes, there will be mistakes and traumas every now and again. And yes, this community is a better place. I am a more wealthy, safe, and happy person because I interconnect and relate positively and fruitfully with a number of human beings who help to keep me safe, who help me to grow, who help my children to have a life worth living, and who will make mistakes. The metric is there a safe and sustainable protocol and environment to have these experiences on a daily basis, as opposed to the opposite, which is everyone's having their own kitchen, their own bathroom, their own refrigerator store, their own plates, their own thing, and everyone's in their own little cocoon looking out at the unknown because it is unknown. As you're all strangers, so I'm not safe. Versus I know every single one of you, your strengths and weaknesses, your beauties and I know every single one of you. And overall, my life is so much richer, so much safer because you are there. And because we have this community space in which to experience the nuanced beauty that is you and that is me.